I never thought I'd be the kind of girl to tell her story online. But after everything that happened, after the sleepless nights, the panic attacks, the tears on my steering wheel at 2 a.m., I realized that sometimes the only way to make sense of something that broke you is to tell the story out loud. So here it is, the story of how I thought I'd found my forever person, and how I learned what it really means to love yourself. When I met Ethan, I was 24, living in a tiny apartment in Austin, Texas, working as a junior graphic designer for a marketing agency. He walked into my life the way people do in movies. Coffee spilling, papers flying, apologies tangled in laughter. Literally. He bumped into me at a coffee shop near work, and my entire latte went all over his shirt. Instead of being annoyed, he laughed. "Guess I needed a reason to change shirts anyway," he said, smiling. That smile. God, I still remember it. The kind that makes you forget your own name for a second. We talked for maybe 20 minutes that day, and by the end of it, he had my number. 2 days later he asked me out. Our first date was simple. Burgers, milkshakes, and a long walk by the river. He asked about my dreams. He actually listened when I talked about my art, about how I wanted to start freelancing someday, about how scared I was to fail. He said things like, "You have that kind of fire in you. People like you always make it." And I believed him. Looking back, I think that's when I started falling. Not for who he was, but for how he made me feel seen. The first few months were a blur of happiness. We'd spend lazy Sundays cooking breakfast in our underwear, dancing to old playlists, laughing over burnt pancakes. He'd bring me flowers for no reason. He'd send me memes at 3 a.m. with captions like, "Us." I remember thinking, this is what love is supposed to feel like. But the thing about love stories, the kind that burn too bright in the beginning, is that sometimes they burn out just as fast. The first red flag came about 6 months in. He started getting busy. More late nights at work, more texts like, "Sorry babe, swamped RN, talk later?" I brushed it off. We were both working hard, him in tech sales, me in design, and I didn't want to be the clingy girlfriend who demanded attention. Then one night, I called him around 9:30. He didn't pick up. I texted. No response. At 11:45, he called back, laughing in the background. "Sorry babe, drinks with the guys ran long. You know how it is." I wanted to believe him. I really did. So I said it's fine. But it wasn't fine. Because that same week he started being different. Distant. His hugs felt shorter. His phone stayed face down. Once, I saw a notification flash, a Snapchat from someone named Jess Kissmark. He grabbed his phone too fast. "It's just a coworker. Relax." I laughed it off, but my stomach twisted. The weeks that followed felt like walking on eggshells. We'd still have good days, lazy Sundays, date nights, inside jokes. But something invisible had shifted. He stopped saying "I love you" first. He started forgetting little things. The way I take my coffee, the artist I loved, the fact that I hate pickles. And then came the night that changed everything. It was a Friday. He said he was going out for team drinks, again. I had a bad feeling, the kind that starts in your chest and crawls into your throat. I told myself I was being paranoid. I watched a movie, tried to distract myself, but I couldn't shake it. At 11:10 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was a message from Lila, my best friend. It said, "Hey, I think you should come to the Wildflower. Now." My heart dropped. I knew that bar. It was one of our spots. Mine and Ethan's. When I walked in, I could smell the cheap beer and see the neon lights flickering against the wood walls. My hands were shaking. And then I saw them. Ethan. And Jess. At the bar. Laughing. Her hand on his thigh. His mouth on hers. I froze. It was like watching my world collapse in slow motion. I don't remember walking across the bar. I just remember my heartbeat in my ears, like thunder. People were laughing, music was playing, the whole world kept going, but mine had already stopped. Ethan didn't even notice me at first. He was too busy leaning in, his hand still on Jess's thigh. She whispered something into his ear, and he smiled, that same damn smile that used to make me melt. Something inside me cracked. It wasn't rage. Not yet. It was disbelief. That kind of disbelief that makes you numb. I walked right up to them. "Hey, Ethan," I said, my voice shaking more than I wanted it to. He froze. Jess's eyes went wide. Maddie. He started, standing up too fast, knocking his drink over. Don't, I said. Don't you dare say my name like that. People were staring now. I could feel the eyes on us, the whispers, the awkward silence spreading through the bar. Jess opened her mouth, maybe to explain, or lie, but I cut her off. So this is what team drinks looks like? She didn't answer. Neither did he. Ethan rubbed his face, muttering, "It's not what it looks like," the most cliché line in the world, and somehow hearing it made me laugh. Not a funny laugh. The kind that comes from somewhere hollow. "Oh, really?" I said. "Because it looks exactly like what it looks like." I turned and walked out. He followed me, calling my name, but I didn't stop. Outside, the night air hit me hard. I remember standing in the parking lot, staring at the ground, trying to breathe. He caught up to me. "Maddie, wait. Please." "For what?" I said, spinning around. "For you to lie again?" He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "It just happened, okay? It didn't mean anything." "Didn't mean anything?" My voice cracked. "Then why were you kissing her in a bar we used to go to?" He looked at me then, that same guilty cornered look I'd seen in 100 bad movies, and I realized this wasn't some misunderstanding. This was who he was now. And maybe who he'd been all along. "I don't even know how it started," he said. "We were hanging out after work talking." Talking? I laughed again, shaking my head. "Do you always talk with your tongue down her throat?" He flinched. "Good. I messed up," he said quietly. "I'm sorry. But the thing is, sorry doesn't fix the nights you stayed up waiting. Sorry doesn't erase the way someone made you feel like a fool." "No, Ethan," I said. "You didn't mess up. You made a choice. And that was it." I turned and walked away. He didn't follow me this time. When I got home, I sat on the floor of my apartment for hours. I didn't cry at first. I just stared at the wall, like my brain couldn't catch up. Then I saw the photo on the fridge, the two of us at the lake last summer, arms around each other, smiling like we had forever ahead of us, and I just broke. I screamed. I cried so hard I couldn't breathe. I threw the photo across the room, and it hit the floor face down. I remember whispering, over and over, "Why wasn't I enough?" That question haunted me for weeks. The next morning, he texted. "I can explain. Please, can we talk?" I didn't answer. He called 10 times. Then 15. By noon, I finally texted back. "There's nothing left to say." He showed up at my apartment that night anyway. Flowers in his hand. That same pitiful expression on his face. I didn't let him in. He stood there, talking through the door. "Maddie, I love you. It didn't mean anything. It was a mistake. I'll do anything to fix this." I wanted to believe him so badly. I wanted to open that door and pretend this was just a nightmare. But something in me, the part that had always made excuses, always forgiven, was finally quiet. "Ethan," I said through the door, my voice flat, "if you loved me, you wouldn't have done it." Silence. Then footsteps fading away. The days after that were a blur. Work, sleep, cry, repeat. Every corner of my apartment reminded me of him. The mug he used, the hoodie he left behind, the playlist we made. I deleted the playlist first. That one hurt the most. Then I boxed up his things. I didn't throw them out. Not yet. I just couldn't. They sat in my closet like ghosts. About a week later, Jess texted me. "Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to happen. I didn't want to hurt you." I stared at that message for a long time. Then I typed back. "You knew he was my boyfriend. You did it anyway." She replied once more. "I think he really loved you. He just got lost." That made me laugh out loud. He got lost? No, he walked away. I blocked her. For a while, I thought maybe I'd never feel okay again. Heartbreak has this way of making time stop. You wake up every day thinking, he's still gone, and it still hurts. But slowly, so slowly I almost didn't notice, things started to change. I started going on walks again. Started painting again. Started sleeping through the night without crying. It wasn't linear. Some days were brutal. But I kept going. About 3 weeks later, I ran into him. Of course it had to happen. Life loves irony. I was at a grocery store, wearing sweatpants and no makeup, when I heard his voice behind me. Maddie! I turned, and there he was. Same boy. Different eyes. He smiled like nothing had happened. You look good. Thanks, I said flatly. We talked for maybe 2 minutes. Small talk. Awkward. Painful. He said he missed me. That he was working on himself. I nodded. When he reached out to touch my arm, I stepped back. Don't, I said quietly. And that's when I realized something had shifted. Not in him, but in me. I didn't hate him anymore. I didn't even want him back. I just didn't care. And that was the first taste of freedom. That night, I went home and deleted every photo of us. I thought it would hurt, but it didn't. It felt like closing a chapter that had been bleeding into the next. I made tea. Lit a candle. And for the first time in weeks, I felt peace. Heartbreak doesn't disappear all at once. It doesn't wake up one day and say, okay, I'm done ruining your life. It fades like a bruise, quietly, unevenly, almost imperceptibly, until one day you touch the spot that used to hurt, and realize it doesn't anymore. That's what healing felt like. Not fireworks. Not some grand, I'm over him moment. Just peace, slow, fragile peace. In the weeks after seeing Ethan at the grocery store, I started to rebuild the little pieces of myself I'd lost. I stopped checking my phone first thing in the morning. I stopped replaying every conversation, trying to find the moment where everything went wrong. I started choosing myself again. It began small. I rearranged my apartment. Moved the couch, repainted the walls, threw out the blanket that still smelled like him. I adopted a cat. A little gray one with big green eyes. I named her Machi because she was soft and small and made everything feel less lonely. I joined a pottery class on a whim. I wasn't good, at all. But there was something freeing about creating something new out of something broken. Clay, after all, only hardens after it's been shaped and burned. Kind of poetic, right? People kept telling me time heals everything. They were wrong. Time doesn't heal, you do. Time just gives you the space to choose to heal. To pick yourself up, over and over, until one day it sticks. There were still bad nights. Nights I'd hear a song that reminded me of him, or see a couple holding hands on the street and feel that familiar ache in my chest. But I learned to let the pain come, and then let it go. I'd whisper to myself, you loved him. He hurt you. And that's not your fault. That became my mantra. A few months passed. Spring turned to summer. My life began to look like mine again. I'd wake up early, open the windows, make coffee, feed Machi, and work on freelance projects from my kitchen table. There was something sacred about those quiet mornings. No messages to check, no one to wait for. Just me, alive, breathing, healing. One Saturday, I went to the park with my sketchbook. It was one of those perfect Austin days, sunny but breezy, the air full of laughter and music from a nearby food truck festival. I was sitting under a tree, sketching, when someone's frisbee landed near me. Sorry about that, a voice said. I looked up. A guy was jogging toward me. Tall, messy hair, kind eyes. No problem, I said, handing it back. You draw? He asked, noticing my sketchbook. Kind of. I'm not great, but it helps me think. He smiled. Then you're doing it right. He introduced himself. Ryan. We talked for maybe 10 minutes. Nothing deep. Nothing flirty. Just light, easy conversation about art, music, and the weird food trucks nearby. Before leaving, he said, you should check out the art fair downtown next weekend. You'd love it. Then he jogged off, waving the frisbee like a goodbye. I didn't think much of it at first. But that small interaction stuck with me. Not because of him but because of how it felt. Normal. Peaceful. No tension, no pretending, no ache. Just light. That night, I realized something. I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of being alone. Not of trusting again someday. I was just me again. A week later, I actually went to that art fair. Not for Ryan, honestly, I didn't even expect to see him, but because I wanted to. And maybe that was the biggest step of all. Doing things for myself. Of course he was there. He spotted me first, smiling like he'd been hoping I'd show up. "Hey, you made it." "I did. The universe bribed me with funnel cake." He laughed. We spent the afternoon walking through the stalls, talking about everything and nothing. He was easy to be around. Gentle, grounded, the kind of person who listens more than he talks. At one point he said, "You have this way of noticing things. Like the small details everyone else misses." It caught me off guard. Ethan had said something similar once, but it sounded different coming from Ryan. Not like a compliment meant to charm, but like an observation meant to understand. We exchanged numbers before leaving. He didn't text me that night. Or the next. And strangely, I was okay with that. I didn't sit by my phone, waiting. Didn't overthink it. Because my happiness wasn't dependent on a text anymore. A few days later, he did text. Just a simple, "Hey, there's this live music thing on Friday. Wanna go?" And I smiled. Not because I needed it but because I wanted it. Friday came. I almost canceled. Fear, maybe. Fear of starting something new. But I didn't. I went. And it was beautiful. We sat under string lights, sharing fries and stories, and I remember thinking, this feels different. Not intense or all-consuming like it was with Ethan. Not butterflies and chaos. Just warmth. The kind of warmth that doesn't set you on fire. It keeps you safe. Over the next few weeks, we kept seeing each other. Slowly. Carefully. No rushing. No labels. Just two people learning to exist in the same orbit. He never asked about Ethan. He never pushed. He just showed up. Kind, steady, patient. One night, as we were walking by the river, he asked, "When was the last time you really felt happy?" I thought for a moment. "Right now," I said. And I meant it. Healing didn't mean forgetting. It didn't mean pretending Ethan never happened. It meant taking what I learned about love, boundaries, and self-worth, and carrying it forward, gently. Because here's the truth no one tells you. Sometimes the love that breaks you is the same love that teaches you how to rebuild. And maybe that's the point. Healing is strange. You think you've made it, that you're done grieving, done feeling, and then one random day, something small knocks the air out of you. For me, it was a song. I was driving home from work when our song came on the radio. The one Ethan used to play on repeat during long drives. The one we'd dance to in the kitchen when we thought love would last forever. For a second, I felt that old ache again. But then something unexpected happened. I didn't cry. I didn't get angry. I just smiled. Because the memories didn't hurt anymore. They were just that. Memories. That's when I realized. I was free. A few weeks later, on a random Wednesday, Ethan texted me. The first time in almost 6 months. "Ethan. Hey. I heard you're doing well. I just wanted to say I'm sorry again. You didn't deserve what I did." My first instinct was to ignore it. But something in me, maybe the part that had finally healed, wanted to close the chapter properly. So I replied. Thank you. I'm okay now. I hope you are too." He responded a few minutes later. "I miss you sometimes." I stared at that message for a long moment. There was a time when words like that would have broken me. But now, they just felt hollow. I used to miss you too. But I think we were meant to learn from each other, not last forever." He didn't reply. And I didn't need him to. That night, I sat on my balcony with a cup of tea and watched the sunset. It hit me then how peaceful my life had become. No chaos, no constant anxiety, no waiting for the other shoe to drop. Just me, the sky, and the quiet hum of a city moving on. Sometimes I still thought about the girl I was a year ago, the one crying on her kitchen floor, asking why she wasn't enough. I wanted to hug her. Tell her that she was enough all along. That love doesn't always last, but it always teaches. That pain, no matter how heavy, always turns into strength if you let it. A month later, I went to a small art exhibition downtown. One of those cozy events in a converted warehouse, full of string lights and acoustic music. Ryan came with me. We wandered between paintings, holding hands, talking about everything from childhood dreams to our favorite breakfast foods. At one point, he stopped in front of a canvas. Abstract, full of broken lines and bold colors. "What do you see in it?" he asked. I looked for a long moment. "Healing," I said. It looks like something that used to hurt, but doesn't anymore. He smiled. That's kind of you, isn't it? I laughed softly. Maybe. And for the first time in a long time I felt it completely. Not the sharp kind of happiness that fades, but the deep, quiet kind that stays. Ethan reached out one last time a few months later. Not to apologize, not to beg, just to say he was moving to another city for work. I wished him luck. And that was that. No bitterness. No unfinished business. Just closure. Because closure doesn't come from someone else's apology. It comes from forgiving yourself, for staying too long, for loving too hard, for breaking open just to find your own light again. I still believe in love. That's the part that surprises people. After everything, I still believe in it. Not the fairy tale version, but the real one. The kind that's quiet and patient, that doesn't demand, that doesn't hurt to hold. Love, I learned, isn't about losing yourself in someone else. It's about finding someone who helps you see yourself more clearly. And if you're lucky, like I was, eventually, you realize that person can be you. One evening, months later, I found one of Ethan's old letters while cleaning. Something he'd written early in our relationship. It said, "I don't know where we'll end up, but I hope it's together." I folded it gently, smiled, and placed it in a box with old sketches and forgotten postcards. Not because I wanted to hold on, but because I didn't need to erase it. It was part of my story. But it wasn't the whole story. Now, when people ask if I believe in second chances, I tell them yes, but not with the same person. With yourself. With life. Because heartbreak isn't the end of love. It's the beginning of understanding it. And maybe, just maybe, that's what forever really means. They say time changes everything. But I don't think that's true. Time doesn't fix the cracks. It just gives you space to rebuild yourself around them, to turn them into something beautiful, like gold in a broken vase. Because after everything, I'm still me. Just softer in some places, stronger in others. A year has passed since that night in the bar. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime ago. Sometimes, if I catch a certain scent or drive past a familiar place, it feels like yesterday. But the girl I was back then, the one standing in that parking lot, shaking and heartbroken, she isn't here anymore. She grew. She learned. She survived. People think healing is about forgetting the person who hurt you. But it's not. It's about remembering yourself before they did. I remember the girl who loved too hard, who thought love was supposed to hurt. The girl who apologized for feeling too much, who stayed when she should have walked away. Now I know better. Love isn't supposed to feel like constant anxiety. It's supposed to feel like peace. My life now is quiet in the best ways. I wake up early to the sound of birds outside my window. Machi curls up beside me while I work on design projects I actually care about. Sometimes I still paint, messy, colorful pieces that make no sense to anyone but me. Ryan and I still see each other. It's not some wild, all-consuming romance. It's steady, gentle, real. He never tries to fix me. He just makes space for me to be exactly who I am. One evening, we were sitting on the hood of his car, watching the sunset from a hill outside the city. The sky looked like melted gold and pink glass. He reached for my hand and said, "You've been through a lot, haven't you?" I smiled. "Yeah, but I'm kind of grateful for it." He tilted his head, surprised. "Grateful?" "Yeah," I said. "Because I wouldn't be here if I hadn't been there first." He didn't say anything after that. He just squeezed my hand, and we sat there quietly, watching the light fade. That's what healing looks like, I think. Not some huge revelation. Not an Instagram quote or a dramatic goodbye. It's the small moments, when the world is still, and your heart finally feels safe again. When you can talk about what broke you without breaking. When you can love without fear. When you can look back and feel gratitude instead of grief. Sometimes I still think about Ethan. Not with anger. Not with longing. Just acknowledgement, like a chapter in a book I once loved, but finished long ago. I hope he's okay. I hope he found whatever it was he was searching for, the thing he couldn't find with me. Because I found mine. And maybe that's the point of it all, that some people come into your life not to stay, but to wake you up. To remind you what you deserve. To teach you that sometimes losing someone isn't the tragedy. It's the turning point. If I could go back and talk to that girl, the one crying on the floor, asking why wasn't I enough? I'd tell her this. You were enough. You always were. He just wasn't capable of seeing it. And one day, you'll stop trying to prove your worth to people who can't recognize it. One day, you'll see yourself the way love was meant to see you. Clearly, kindly, completely. And that day, everything will make sense. I don't believe in happy endings anymore. I believe in honest ones. Because life doesn't tie itself up neatly with a bow. But if you're lucky, it gives you moments. Soft, quiet, breathtaking moments that make all the pain worth it. Like sunlight on your skin after months of rain. Like laughter that feels like home. Like peace after chaos. And that's where I am now. Not at the end. Just at a new beginning. If you've ever been where I was, broken, lost, wondering if you'll ever feel okay again, I want you to know this. You will. You absolutely will. Because one day, you'll wake up and realize the ache is gone. You'll look at yourself in the mirror and see someone stronger. Someone softer. Someone who finally knows how to love. Starting with herself. And that, my friends, is the kind of love that never leaves.